Welcome back, everybody, to the channel. If you're new here, my name's Saleem Chauhan. This channel's all about social mobility, but not in the way that you think. It's certainly not about all of the corporate nonsense that you might hear in and around social mobility or some of the establishment view on what social mobility looks like. This is real social mobility, real freedom, and everything we talk about on this channel is through lived experience, not theory. And I suppose if you're new here, quick little insight into me. I've been to the very bottom of society, and have rebuilt my life in a position now where I lead multi-million-pound technology deals for a whole host of enterprise companies, and deal with lots of senior people day in, day out. If you'd said to me several years ago, this is where you'd be, I would have just laughed in your face, because I wouldn't have thought it was possible. So this channel is all about sharing how to liberate yourself, how to change things in your situation, whatever your situation might be. Everybody has a different situation. Everybody has their own set of challenges, their own set of aspirations, and everybody's starting position is also different as well. So that's why this channel is probably not for everybody, but it is for those people that are looking to hear an authentic voice, are looking to see beyond just a load of theory and highly edited YouTube kind of videos. This isn't that type of channel. This is raw. This is about just jumping on and speaking about key subjects, but speaking in an unedited way, in a way that hopefully resonates with you guys. So we've been talking the last few weeks about mindset, and the fact that having the right mindset is very much the first stage in your social mobility journey, in terms of transforming yourself from where you are to where you want to be. And if you don't know where you want to be, that's fine. And if you only know that you want to change your situation, that's fine as well. These things are very much what you might call or describe as incremental journeys. Yeah, sometimes you can feel as though you've taken a quantum leap forward. Other times you feel as though you've gone 2 steps backwards. That's just how some of these pathways work out to progression. And that's what we're talking about here, is personal progression and being in a position where you can do things for yourself, not for anybody else, not for society, not for your neighbours, not for your family, ultimately for you, right? So that you can be a better version of yourself. You can contribute something positive. You can go forward and be who you're destined to be. And today we're going to talk about, I suppose, a different aspect of having the right mindset. We're going to talk about how to overcome addictions, because addictions have lots of different forms, and they manifest in lots of different ways, and can often, but not always, often hold people back from being their true self, or to going forward and being able to realize their potential, being able to fill the void. Because ultimately, certainly my perspective on addiction, whatever the addiction might be, is that you're filling a void. Right? There's a certain level of emptiness that you feel an activity or something that you are doing is going to fill that void, and it gives you that fix, whatever that fix might be that you're looking for, because that's what the void is left in you. You feel as though there's something missing, and you want to fill that with something artificial. And we're going to talk about what it takes to overcome that, and what are the benefits of overcoming that, and just really getting over that kind of mindset. Because once you realize that a lot of these addictions, and we'll talk about some of them in just one moment, but a lot of these addictions are possibly holding you back, right? Are stopping you, are limiting you, are constraining you, are causing friction points in your life. And you might have many. You might have one if you're lucky, right? But most people have many that hold them back, and the spectrum is massive. It really is. Whether you're talking about at the softer end of the spectrum, food, right? Maybe right across to the other end of the spectrum where you're talking about really, the nasty end of the scale, drug addiction, pornography, just evil activities, the evil end of the spectrum. And we'll talk about how, as a human, you can go and traverse that kind of spectrum, sometimes hour by hour, sometimes day by day, sometimes week by week. It goes up and down, right? But fundamentally, there's lots of different types of things that you need to put into perspective to try and move yourself forward. And the reason why you should try and do this is it's going to help you to redefine your situation, which is fundamentally what you want to try and do, right? To fill the void. Yeah, so let's just say the void is, some sort of lack of emotion that you might fill with food, for argument's sake. Easily done. Lots of people do it. It's a very common thing, whether it's food, whether it's drink, whether it is smoking, whether it is something else. Ultimately, you might be feeling down, or you might be feeling up, or you might be feeling somewhere in the middle. And you think, okay, let me just have X, Y, and Z to give me that little bit of that hit and that little bit of that high that's going to make me feel good, or is going to make me feel better than what I'm feeling right now. So it's about redefining that need and acknowledging in yourself that there is some kind of void that needs to be filled by something meaningful, something real. And this is a natural thing to all humans, right? Every single person feels like this. Whether you are watching a lot of people on Instagram, or you're seeing people that in your life, at school, at work, or wherever it might be, at the gym or whatever, and you think, wow, they're full of confidence, or I bet they don't have the same insecurities that I have. That's not the case, right? Everybody has these moments, and everybody has the scope to suffer from these voids, unless you've got a real way, a real approach to tackling them. And we'll come on to that. And, in some of the more previous kind of videos that I've recorded, we've talked about what is the spiritual journey to filling these voids. And we'll talk about that as well. But ultimately, that's what it's about, is filling the void with something that is correct, something that is natural to you as a human, natural to you, to your soul, and will allow you to progress. So I suppose let's talk about a few examples, right? And I suppose there's lots of different examples I personally could speak about, like being addicted to a gazillion and one things, whether it is something that might be deemed to be harmless, like listening to music, watching TV, all the way across to the evil end of the spectrum, right? You know, just being horrible to people, or pornography, or being in a position where you're addicted to substances, whatever the substances might be, right? And this is all about, whether it's nicotine, whether it's something else. This is all about trying to fill some sort of void that your mind has conditioned, or sometimes there's lots of different factors from society that have contributed towards it. You know, your own personal situation might be traumatic, it might be constantly stressful, it might be um, really challenging in different ways, right? Whether you are a parent, whether you are a child, whether you are a worker that's going through some sort of difficult, wherever you might be, at whatever stage and at whatever um, chapter or whatever mode of life you're in, right? These things all shape your perspective, and there's lots of negativity out there, and there's lots of ways that you are being conditioned in the wrong way, right? You know, whether it is somebody saying something horrible to you that they don't quite realize how horrible it was, the comment. Maybe it was a disposable comment from their side, or maybe it was something malicious. Who knows? Only they know, right? But the impact that it's had upon you has been phenomenal. And if you're hearing that level of negativity on a regular basis, it begins to condition you, and it begins to shape you, and it begins to direct you into certain pathways, and pushes you towards listening to that niggling voice in the back of your mind that might be thinking, well, this isn't good. I wish I felt better about X, Y, and Z. Let me try A, B, and C, whatever A, B, and C might be. And of course, it can come with your peer group as well, who you're exposed to. And I suppose now, as an older person, you value peer group more than you did when you're a kid, right? Because nothing wrong with being a kid; it's a fantastic time. However, you definitely lack wisdom, right? And you expose yourself and are surrounded by people that sometimes are not the best for you, right? And don't want the best for you. In fact, probably don't even care about you, really. But at that moment in time, obviously, you're going on a journey, you're exposed to those people at that particular moment in your life, and they can influence you, and you can influence yourself, because there's always that companion in the back of your mind, right? And maybe in other videos we can expand on what I mean by the companion, right? But there is that in the background that's always going to look to trip you up, always going to look to push you down the wrong route, and always going to, um, you know, uh, try and lay a really shaky foundation for you. And I suppose that's one of the objectives here, is to totally dig that shaky foundation up and lay down a solid foundation, a foundation of good, a foundation that is built upon something decent. Because when you have a foundation of good, it's solid. right? And it creates a virtuous cycle rather than a vicious cycle. If you're caught up in nastiness, then, some of the things that you do, not all the things, but some of the things that you do and that you expound are nasty and are evil and border on that. So it's a question of just really understanding what it is that's happening to you. And you really do need to create some think space for yourself, some think time to be able to say, right, what what am I really about? What am I really trying to do? What is my real purpose in life? What am I uh, like as a human? Whether you are somebody's wife, whether you're somebody's sister, whether you're somebody's brother, husband, father, son, what, colleague, neighbor, whatever it might be, you've got to be able to have those moments where you're thinking about what is it that I'm doing and what are all these different little aspects of my life, right? What are they about, right? What are these fillers? And the fillers might take lots of different forms, right? So you might have momentarily, you might feel that one of the fillers might be music, for argument's sake. Very common addiction for a lot of people. And there's lots of people that'll say, right, nothing wrong with music. It does a lot of good and it can make you feel good and it can change your mood and, you know, um, it's fantastic and so on and so forth. And yeah, maybe. But I think that the emotional control that it can have over the human spirit and the human soul is something that's dangerous and something that needs to be understood in the right way. Right now, don't get me wrong, I've been addicted to music, and do I have a liking for music? Yeah, when I hear a tune, I'm like, wow, that's a tune, right? A bit like I was addicted to smoking. I don't smoke anymore, but sometimes I'll walk past somebody that's having a cigarette and I'll be like, wow, that smells good, right? But that doesn't mean to say that I'm going to go back to that. That doesn't mean to say that I don't acknowledge the harm something like that might be doing to not just your physical body, but your own spiritual kind of being. And I think when you're dealing with these types of addictions, right, they can really lead to something that is very dangerous and something that gives you an unrealistic perspective on the world, right? Because you might think the world is all about, you, me, myself, and I, right? And yeah, there is an element of that, but you've got to think deeper than that, and you've got to think above and beyond that, and be able to understand, right? What is this void that I feel music is going to fulfill, or I feel cigarettes is going to fulfill, or I feel pornography is going to fulfill, right? Because let's talk about something like pornography, right? What is it? Um, it's a very, very evil activity that is positioned in our society as something that has become normalized, mainstream, easy to access, and the void that it might fill is some sort of deep desire within a human for lust, right? For slaking your lust and being in a position where you are um, a slave to that, right? Because that is a very powerful emotion and a very powerful act, right? Of being sexual. is something that is very powerful, right? And there's lots of different dimensions to it. That is a massive topic in its own right. However, coming back to the issue of the addiction to pornography, which is becoming more and more common, right? Because it's so easily accessible. One, you've got to look at what that leads to and the warped perspective it gives you on a number of different levels, right? Whether it is your perspective on males, females, whether it is your perspective on what is normal in a relationship, whether it is, you know, viewing some crazy acts as just normal, right? And seeding your brain with some evil activities and dark, dark thoughts, right? Again, the spectrum within that particular activity is massive in its own right. And, you know, you've got to look at the void that it's filling. So, from a male's perspective, you know, you might be young and you might think, all right, I'm going to look at this because, you know, I need to slake my lust. I need to be in a position where I'm satisfying my desire to have some sort of sexual experience. And the easiest way to do that for a lot of people that might not be married, might not be in a regular relationship, or whatever your status is, they think that by looking at these types of things, you're going to get that satisfaction, you're going to fill that void. And it's a very dangerous, very, very dangerous place to be in. And you've got to acknowledge what it is that you're doing, right? It's warped, right, to be in that position where you want to pursue these things. Don't get me wrong, I'm not here to say I'm holier than thou or I've never done any of the. Of course I have. As I said at the beginning of this video, I'm speaking from real life experience, not from theory, right? It's a tough road to tread coming away from some of these things, particularly things like music, particularly things like TV, all of these types of things that shape you and condition you. Don't get me wrong, you know, I'm not saying that I don't watch TV, but you've got to put it in its place, right? And you've got to understand what it is that is satisfying. What's the point of it? And what role does it play actually within your life? You know, we live in a time where people are just constantly online, right? Are constantly connected, are constantly from the minute they wake up to the minute they go to bed. And nothing wrong with technology, right? At the end of the day, you know, it has its benefits and everything like that. But you need to take a moment for yourself. You need these moments of reflection so that you can try and address some of these voids, whatever the voids might be in your life, so that you can try and build something better for yourself. And even starting with the just the momentary thought of, listen, this isn't a good thing. You know, whether you're vaping, whether you're just doing heroin, whether you're dropping E's, whether you're, you know, partying, whether you are womanizing, whether you are just being evil to people, whether you're frauding people, whatever the addiction might be, right? Because they're all different forms of addiction. Is you need to stop and think for a moment. And if that, even for that split second, you have that thought that, listen, this isn't right, that's your natural disposition speaking to you. That's your natural, authentic self speaking to you, saying to you that, you know what, Are you sure you want to continue with this? Is it not the time for change? And sometimes you need to listen to that voice that's deep down inside of you. And that can be a journey in itself. That can be something that takes time, something that is incremental in nature as well. It's not something that you have that one split thought and, everything in your life is going to be corrected. It's not about that, right? And especially if you fall into the depths that I had fallen to, right, where you could almost now reflect upon it and think every single thing was at the nasty end, the evil end of the spectrum that I was pursuing, that I was doing, that I was involved in, that I was thinking about, that I was, desiring, wanting, hunting, looking for. These are things that take you on to ultimately a crash course for disaster. You're just looking to derail your whole life by continuing in that vein, and ultimately either something traumatic is going to happen, something dramatic, or just a sequence of mediocrity and very passive events happen in life where all of a sudden, before you know it, it's come to an end, and you're like, well, what do I actually achieve? What did I actually leave behind? What good did I do? I mean, I don't know if that's a question that you ever ask yourself, but it is something that you should ask yourself, is what is the good that you've left? Now, whatever and it might be, it might only be a mustard seed of good. But if it's something good, then it's something good, right? And you can build upon that. And coming back to the point of what we're talking about here in addictions, is really being in a position where you acknowledge that you need to redefine your understanding of the purpose of your existence and redefine your current state, because you need to acknowledge if there are things that, and I'm very confident there will be things that are holding you back, that are um, exaggerating how you might be feeling from a desperation perspective or a despair perspective, or you feel like chucking it all in, right? And you think that nothing's going to change, nothing can ever be good. It's all a downward spiral, it all feels really dark. You've got to dig deep, and you've got to be able to find those little rays of light. And those little rays of light start with acknowledging those moments are good, those moments where your natural disposition is calling you and is saying to you, have a word with yourself, right? Just hit the brake, right? Do a soft reset, whatever it might be that you need to say to yourself, to be able to, even if it's for a moment, be able to just catch yourself and be able to think, right, what is it that I'm doing here? Right, where am I heading? Where am I going? And sometimes it's difficult to even find that think time. And sometimes when you find that think time for yourself, it's difficult to think about how can you transform your life? How can you move from one state to another? How can you have the energy, the power, the will, the just the whole kind of commitment to take yourself forward? Because sometimes when you're at rock bottom, those things just don't. So you just feel as though you haven't got it in you, right? And I've felt like that a million and one times, right? Where you're like, not sure I've got this in me. But, if you keep hearing that voice and you keep hearing that natural disposition saying to you, no, that's not right. No, you know what? You need to go forward. You need to stop and think. And every little milestone like that will take you forward. And if you're struggling on that journey, then this is what this channel's all about. This channel's all about creating that kind of community where we can try and support you through that and be in a position where we're sharing positivity, we're sharing real life experience on how you can transform yourself and how you can genuinely start a real journey of mobility, social mobility, if you want to call it that. And well, actually, that is the right terminology, because if you are creating things from a foundation of good, the impact is massive. The impact is not just you, the impact is for your family, the impact is for your immediate community, so on and so forth. And when we have that mindset, we go forward as humans. That's why it's a mobility journey, right? And it's not necessarily about, you know, look at how I've moved on the economic scale. Yeah, that might be one element to it, and it might be one of your drivers, but it's not the be all and end all, right? And it shouldn't be. And if you are that way inclined, which I have been, because, for whatever reason, that's how I was conditioned. And maybe in some future videos we can talk about that. But, if you are, thinking that it's all about money, or you're thinking it's all about the job title, or it's all about, me having whatever, a beautiful wife, or, I've got to have this in my life or that in that. Whatever the crazy thoughts are, you really do need to stop and think. And when you redefine these things properly in your mind, you're able to realize that there's a real wealth and a real richness inside you, just naturally. And that is the natural disposition that you need to connect with. And you need to be in a position where you understand the source of that natural disposition, which is a spiritual source. And you need to, go on this journey and, move yourself forward. Whether you are moving forward in millimeters, whether you're moving forward in meters, whether you're taking quantum leaps, everybody's journey is going to be different. But the key thing is you've got to move forward. So I think what we'll do is we'll leave it there for today. I think this is a massive subject matter that we can dip into on a regular basis, but this was just kind of the initial introductory session into the kinds of things that might hold you back from a mindset perspective, and the contributory factors like addiction, sorry, forgive me, that might hold you back. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Look forward to obviously seeing you in the next one. Look forward to all of your comments. Um, if you're finding this channel useful, be great if you can subscribe and like. And we look forward to obviously bringing you a lot of more positivity going forward. So be cool, and we'll see you in the next episode.